Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of Conscious Collaboration Cafe. I'm Kristen Ballas, your host and holistic health coach and healer. And today we have a really exciting episode. We have with us Victoria Trevisan, who we lovingly call Tori. And she's a phenomenal 18-year-old woman who is just going to knock your socks off with her story, with her wisdom, and just being herself. So without further ado, I'd like to say hello, Tori.
Hi, Kristen. I'm so excited to be on.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here too. And, you know, I met you last year. And we got together locally and here in Los Angeles with a group of people that are using the medical medium information to heal themselves from all kinds of chronic illnesses, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, just you name it, all kinds of stuff. And so I got to meet you then in person, and it's really fun, you know, because we meet people online and we get to know them in a way, but it's so different when you get to meet up in person. And I really enjoyed that. And I really feel like you and I hit it off when we met, and we've been staying in contact ever since, and through the pandemic and everything. And I'd love for you to share with everyone a little bit about how you got sick, and then, you know, within the constraints of censorship, right? So we'll skirt around the words, but you guys will understand what we're talking about. And then, you know, what kind of symptoms, conditions you had, and how you know, what was your experience with the medical community around that, and then, you know, when you found medical medium information, how that changed everything for you.
Yeah, of course. So I first got sick when I was 13, 14 years old. This was a medical treatment that my parents and my doctors decided to give me. It was basically injected aluminum into my body against my wishes. I mean, at the time, I didn't really know much about it or about the risks or anything like that. And I kind of wish my parents had done the research, but the doctor was just so adamant about it and basically bullied my parents into giving me this treatment. So there wasn't really a way out of it for me. I mean, I even remember telling my mom, can you please just give me it now to get it over with instead of having to wait even longer? So that happened. And within the first few months of the third dose, I was having symptoms and conditions that were truly debilitating. I had neurological symptoms. I had chronic pain. I had chronic fatigue. I was even paralyzed in bed some mornings. And there's so many other symptoms and conditions that it's hard for me to think about, like, since it was like so long ago. And my condition progressed over the next couple of years. So I was diagnosed with things like Lyme disease, POTS, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's disease. And then I also developed depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, and lots of other things, including also an eating disorder. And this was just something that my condition just continued to progress over the couple of years since I first got this medical treatment. And so I went plant-based just because I felt like that was what my body could agree with, the foods that my body agreed with. And then after that, I found medical medium because I had went plant-based. And I found him on Instagram because he was promoting a lot of stuff on Instagram. And so I decided that I would get his first book because I was like, what else do I have to lose? Because at this point I had been sick for years and I didn't really have any answers from doctors. I was mostly denied for my condition. They would tell me, oh, like, it's all in your head. You're depressed. You're this and you're that. And even the few doctors that did actually believe that I was truly suffering, they didn't give any answers for me. And So that was really hard, obviously, because I was still a child and I was basically advocating for myself. I mean, my parents, they did help and they would bring me to doctors and such, but they didn't have any answers for healing either. So I was kind of on my own in my quest to try and find answers. So I started medical medium when I was 16. I had just turned 16. So this was 2 years after I had first gotten sick. And I just immediately went on with the celery juice. I guess that was the first thing. And then I added in some supplements like B12 and zinc and lemon balm. And to my amazement, within the first 2 months, I had healed my anxiety and my panic attacks. Like they were just gone like that. Yeah. It was crazy because I used to be on medication for them, anti-anxiety medications. I would need that every single day. And especially if I was having treatments at the hospital or whatever, because I would get really bad panic attacks. And it was just gone within the first 2 months of starting medical medium. And there were other things also that I was able to get off of medications. Like with my POTS, I was off blood pressure stabilizers that I would have to take 3 times a day. And I was on some other medications like anti-inflammatories and thyroid medications, and I was able to stop those within those first 2 months. And I was like, wow, I really found something here, because I had already been plant-based. So I'd been pretty much eating this way, just very restricted since I did have an eating disorder. And so when I started, I just knew this was it. And so I just continued to dive in with the information. I started the heavy metal detox smoothie 2 months in, and that really helped with other of my symptoms, like with my PTSD and like other symptoms of that sort, and even my chronic pain. I remember that really helped a lot, and I was able to just continue to see my symptoms get better and better and better over the months. And from that until today, which it has been 2 years since I started medical medium, I'd say overall I'm 60% better with my symptoms. And I have seen great improvements. I've healed completely from some things. Other things, they're still taking longer to heal, such as like neurological symptoms, just because that takes longer. And so that's where I'm at right now with my healing journey with medical medium.
Wow. It's such an amazing story. I mean, even within the medical medium community, that you've had such huge results so quickly, especially with the anxiety and the depression and all that. That really blows my mind, because, you know, my experience with that is that it took a lot longer for that to go away. But I was also in a really polluted environment. You know, I had the mold issue in my apartment, and that really, really can play a big role in your healing process, you know, is what's going on in your environment as well as what's going on in your body. And so it's really amazing to hear that, you know, if you don't have those outside circumstances going on, how quickly this can actually work, you know. And I just, you know, I wanted to go back a little bit. You know, you were saying like you went to a bunch of doctors. Most of them, you know, told you it was all in your head. And, you know, I really wanted to bring that to the forefront, because so many of us experience that. You know, I had the same experience when I was going to doctor after doctor, you know, and we're here in Los Angeles. There's lots of incredible specialists here, and to have them tell you like, this is just a psychological problem, like that you're making all this stuff up, all this pain and suffering you're going through. And it's just not true. It's not true. This stuff is real. It's caused by viruses and toxic heavy metals like mercury, like aluminum, like cadmium, barium, you know, all of the crap falling out of the sky in our food and our water system, the fluoride. I mean, we have so many toxins in our environment, and you know, we're being hit with them all the time. And then, you know, to have them being injected into us on top of that, you know, it's just like, oh my God. And so, so, for the medical community to deny that these things actually are real and they exist and they're causing us so many health issues is just, it's so disheartening. And there's so many of us with these stories, where we've gone to the doctors and they, just dismiss us. And then we find out the truth, later, because we have to become our own advocates. We have to help ourselves, and we have to find a way to do that. And I know I didn't find medical medium through directly through his posts. I found him through a juicing group that I was in that was totally unrelated. And somebody kept talking about how great his stuff is and how much it's helping them. And, and that's why I think it's important for people like you and I to get out there and share our stories, because, that's how I found him. I wouldn't have found him otherwise. So, just because somebody was willing to share their story. And so I think it's so amazing, especially someone at your age, you really got cheated out of a normal childhood because of what happened with you and your health. And, you're not the only one. You're not the only one your age that this is happening to. And so I think it's so great that you're willing to come on and speak and really share your story for, everyone, but also specifically for the younger crowd that is getting hit with these horrible, debilitating conditions and symptoms, and they don't understand why. You go to the doctor and you trust that they're doing the right thing for you until you find out that they're not. And it's not the doctor's fault. They're being trained wrong, right? And so, and there's, a whole agenda behind that and why that's happening. And we don't need to really get into that there. Anthony does talk about this publicly. And, but we don't know that initially until we get hurt, until we get really, really sick. And then we have to find out how to heal ourselves, and we find out more of the truth about it. And we realize we can't just put these doctors up on a pedestal and, trust everything they're telling us. We have to be our own health advocates. And I think you and I have really understood from being chronically ill that is so important. And, gosh, if we could have learned to do that before any of this happened, how much suffering we might have been able to avoid, but we don't know. And our parents don't know. And, it's like, it's not anybody's fault that this is happening. It's just, it's something that the more we can get out and talk about it and create awareness about it, then people can know, and maybe we can help prevent someone else's suffering or help ease it in some way, that they, start to find out the truth and start to be led to the right information that can really help them heal. So it's amazing, that you're willing to come out and talk about this stuff, and like we're going to talk about, and we can go into that right now, the eating disorder. You and I have that in common too. We had different eating disorders, but we both had them. And so why don't you talk a little bit about that, and what you had and how that affected your life, and how it affects what you're doing now with the medical medium stuff in terms of other people's perception of what you're doing.
Yeah,
you and I both have run into that.
Yeah, for sure. So my eating disorder didn't start from the beginning. It was actually something that I developed after I initially got sick. I believe it's from all the trauma that I suffered around doctors and treatments and just not having my life anymore. Like, I lost all my friends. Even some of my family didn't believe what was happening to me. And then obviously I had high levels of mercury in my brain, and this is what caused me to have anorexia. And very specifically that eating disorders, that's how I know that it was mercury, because I didn't really have anything else. I was extremely OCD about this. I was suffering tremendously with obsessive compulsive disorder, and I was restricting my calories very, very heavily, because at first, this was before I started restricting purposefully, I just could not handle eating food. Like, my digestive system had shut down. I had gastroparesis. I eventually developed ulcerative colitis, which is internal bleeding in the digestive tract. And so food would just sit in my stomach for days. So I just had to stop eating when I first got sick. I just couldn't handle anything. And anything I would try to eat would just be so, so painful. So at first I didn't mean for me not to eat. Like, it just happened. But then after, it turned into this really disordered mindset. And it was something that I suffered with for maybe a year or a year and a half. And I even started medical medium still struggling with anorexia. I was restricting my intake. So even though I was eating high carbohydrate foods, I was still low carbohydrate because I wasn't eating enough. And that's something that the heavy metal detox smoothie and even the celery juice really helped me get over, because it was disarming the toxic heavy metals in my brain and in my body, and it was getting those out of me. And that's really what gave me hope for recovery, was the heavy metal detox smoothie and getting all these metals actively out of my body, because or else there was no way that I could have recovered. That is what gave me some hope and the strength to want to recover, because I was finally getting rid of all these toxins that were creating these negative thoughts in my head and the negative voices and all of that. And it was really difficult at first to be starting with medical medium, and with my family, who was obviously very worried about my health. They weren't sure if they could trust me. Well, it wasn't necessarily me, it was the eating disorder. They weren't sure if they could trust it yet, if it was in recovery or not, because you can get very sneaky when you have an eating disorder. But anyway, so they could see that I was making improvements slowly, and even I could see it. And I was like, wow, I really want this. Like, I want to get better. And so I decided, only myself, because only you can save yourself when you have an eating disorder. I decided, I was like, this is it. I'm going to go all in with my recovery. And at first it was really hard. It was hard to really be forcing myself to eat. But after a couple months, it was so worth it, because I was just getting better and better and better. And I still had negative comments coming from my one doctor, my gastroenterologist, and even my parents. They were worried about me eating so low fat and over fat free. They're like, oh, you really need fat to help with your brain. But I had learned from medical medium that actually your brain is made of carbohydrates, and you want to be eating lots of sugar, like in its natural form, from clean carbohydrate sources. And even my intuition was telling me, like, you can't do oils. Like, every time I would eat them, it would make me so uncomfortable. And even fatty foods and things like avocado and coconut, I just had to stay away because.
Oh no, you're freezing out.
But is it better now?
Yes, it's better now. Go back to the avocado.
Okay. So I was still cutting out avocado and coconut just because they are overt fat foods, and I was just so sensitive to that. My hydrochloric acid and my bile levels were so low, they couldn't process those kinds of foods. So I really stayed high carb, no fats. And my parents were concerned because my doctor was concerned. And she was always encouraging me to eat more oils and things like that. But I followed my intuition, and I just kept staying high carb and fat free. And I healed that way. I mean, I even got my period back that way. And it just showed me that trusting my intuition, now following medical medium, it just made perfect sense for me. And I can see now how people might view my diet and my lifestyle as maybe disordered, but I think it's because they don't understand what it was like to be before and how it is now. And when you learn all of this information, it just makes perfect sense to you. And I am 100% certain that this was the best thing for my healing. And it still is, because I'm still healing every single day. And I am no longer living with an eating disorder. I'm free, I'm recovered, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that is all that has to matter to you, right? Because again, we have to be our own advocate in everything, even with the people around us who love us and care about us and may not fully understand what we're doing because they haven't studied the information or tried it for themselves. And oh boy, we're really having some internet issues. Can you hear that echo?
Weird. There's no echo on my side, but
Oh, I'm getting that on my side. Well, maybe it's not coming through to everyone else, but it's really incredible. With the eating disorders, I dealt with compulsive overeating, and then I would go the extreme between that and and a little bit borderline anorexic, and so, I've been kind of dealing with that my whole life and adult life. I would say it probably started around my last year of high school. And that's when some of my health issues started too, but I didn't have any awareness around it. It didn't debilitate me to the point like you were. So there was no taking me to a lot of doctors or anything like that, except for one bout where they thought I had Lyme and then they decided I didn't. But and that I seemed to like come out of it or whatever. But, for me, it all kind of snowballed as I got older and didn't really debilitate me until I was in my 30s. So for me, it was a little different, but it's all, you're right. It's the heavy metals. It's the glucose shortage. I was eating a standard American diet, and then I was binging and stuff because I wasn't getting what I needed, and, between that and all the heavy metals in my brain. And, I'm still I'm still drinking my smoothie. Like I've been doing that every day for 3 years. And I have a lot of heavy metals in me, and it just takes a lot of patience and time. And I'll be drinking this for the rest of my life because we're constantly exposed to new stuff, right? And so yeah, there's so much in what you shared about that, and if it weren't for the sound issues, I would be able to recall more of it. But I still suffer from brain fog right now, and it kicked back up during the fires, and it hasn't cleared up as much yet. So we'll leave that there. But if there's anything else you want to share about that, please jump right in. But your story is so amazing, and mine is too. I guess I should really kind of jump in and share a little bit about what I've healed. And I've been working on, when I first got debilitating illness, it was in 2009. And then I kind of came out of it a little bit, enough where I could sort of function again if I worked around stuff. So I kind of did that for a while. And then it totally knocked me down again in the end of 2014, early 2015. And so for the past 3 years now, I've been doing the medical medium protocols because nothing else was working, and doctors thought it was in my head. And even the ones that didn't have answers for me. They couldn't tell me why my face pain was excruciating and my whole entire body was in horrific pain, and I couldn't use my arms, I couldn't use my legs, like I was having trouble walking and my leg would drag behind me, and sometimes I would have to use a wheelchair, but I didn't have anybody to push me around, and I didn't have an electric one. So it was really bad, and the fatigue was so bad. I was having to lay down for like 4 hours in the middle of the day because I just couldn't function, and all of that, and all the fatigue is cleared, and in the depression, the anxiety, oh my God, you talked about the dark thoughts and everything. And man, I mean, I used to get so upset with my brain because I was like, why are you going here? Why are you thinking these things, like crazy stuff, and envisioning like just mutilation and bloody messes and what if I drive my car into the divider of the freeway right now? I wonder what would happen if I do that. And you hear yourself thinking these thoughts, and you're like, this is nuts, right? Like, why is this happening? And it's like, it's not you, but it's still like it's plagues you, and the OCD and oh my gosh. So for me, the really dark thoughts are gone. I still have the looping OCD, like self-abusive kind of stuff going on, but it's so toned down from where it used to be. And I know it'll heal. I know it's in the process. And, it comes and goes now. It's not constant, which it used to be constant. And, so I can tell it's getting better. And, the depression's completely gone. The anxiety is like from a 10 to like a 1 now. It's just so different. And I think all of us kind of have some anxiety, like we're always dealing with so many stresses in life and everything. So I don't know that it'll ever be like a 0, but maybe there'll be lovely moments of that. I'm looking forward to it. But like, and what else have I healed? So many symptoms and conditions. Like I can, walk really well now and use my hands and arms, and I can put my arms over my head, and I couldn't do any of that before. So, and my face pain is way down. It used to be like always constant 24/7 at like a 9. And I mean, it was just excruciating. And that was the one that out of everything going on in my body, no one could explain to me why I was having this horrific face pain. Nobody identified it as trigeminal neuralgia, which is really the shingles virus. And, it was, I couldn't chew. I couldn't what do you do when your face hurts that much? There's like nothing you can do. And I couldn't take pain meds even if I wanted to, because I was so sensitive to any medications. And I think one of the reasons my medical medium journey has been a little slower, in addition to the mold toxicity exposure, was also because I'm so far gone. I can't take a lot of supplements. And even when I do take the supplements, it's got to be really low doses. And I've come a long way with that. I'm on like 17 different supplements right now, and that's a lot for me. And, I remember when we were at your Christmas party, and like I brought my supplements to take or whatever, and I have this like little container, and you guys are all laughing. You're like, I have a jar for like each morning, noon, and night and stuff. And I'm like, I can't take anywhere near that many supplements. But I love that Anthony says, even if you can only take a drop of B12, like it's going to help you, and it's so encouraging, everything he says, because he really does say every little thing you do towards taking a step toward health. If you eat one apple during the day, like that is helping you. Even if you eat a whole bunch of garbage around it, like you had that apple, you gave that to your liver, you gave that to your body, and you gave that to your brain. Oh, I know what else I wanted to share. I've actually eaten brain. He talked about that recently. He's like, if you've ever, for, the people who've actually eaten brain, and I can attest to what he says is absolutely true. So when I was in high school, I took a trip to Europe, and I went to see this family that we knew because we had some exchange students come visit us from France. And then so when I went over there, I went to see them. And one of them lived on a farm, and, there's the cows grazing outside the dining room or whatever. And, they don't tell me what we're eating. And halfway through the meal, they're like, so what do you think? And I'm like, oh, it's good. It's kind of sweet, whatever. What is it? And they're like, oh, it's cow brain. And I'm like, what? I was like, oh my God. So of course, then I was grossed out once I found out what it was. But it's really sweet. Your brain is really sweet because it's sugar, it's glucose, right? It's, so, and people have been, misled to think that we need omega fats is what you need to feed your brain. You need fat, you need protein, and I was on that kick, before I got into medical medium, and all my doctors were telling me more protein, eat more meat. that's why you're tired. You don't have enough protein. I'm like, I'm eating protein like 3 times a day. How can I, I was eating eggs for breakfast and, meat at lunch and meat at dinner and just getting sicker, getting sicker and sicker. And of course, once you start learning about the medical medium information, you find out why, that is.
Yeah.
But, and he just did a great podcast on why not to eat eggs. And I loved eggs. To me, that was a treat to have eggs every morning, because when I grew up, we didn't have eggs except for once in a while, my mom would do eggs for dinner on Friday nights because we were Catholic and you don't eat meat on Fridays. So she'd come up with a lot of times for dinner, we'd have breakfast foods on Fridays. And so it was just what she did. And so once in a while we'd have eggs then, but we never had hot breakfast. We always had sugar cereal for breakfast. Occasionally my dad would get donuts and that would be a treat. But, that's what I grew up on. And so for me to give myself eggs every morning as an adult was treating myself really well. And I had no idea how sick it was making me, and I'd put vegetables in them and stuff like that and make omelets and whatever. And, I'm thinking I'm eating healthy and here I am making myself so sick. So, we don't know until we know, but yeah, I've come so far in my healing too. And, it's so great to be able to connect with other people who are doing the same thing with the medical medium information. And, I want to jump trains here a little bit because there's so many other exciting things that you're starting to get interested in and studying. And I know one of the things you started studying was iridology. And, one thing I noticed as I've been, even before I started my healing journey, even before I knew I had chronic illness in my body, before I was aware of it, I noticed my eyes changing colors. Because when I was growing up, my eyes were like this dark chocolate brown. And I ate so much chocolate, and my family used to joke that my eyes were that brown because I ate so much chocolate. And as I got older, my eyes started turning lighter, which was weird even to my eye doctors, because they said usually it goes the other way. If your eyes are going to change colors, they would get darker. And mine were getting lighter. And then, so I was, trying to understand that. And then I, started the medical medium journey, and now my eyes sometimes will be almost blue. And, they'll go between that and either green or like a hazel brown, and they keep changing up. And what I've come to understand is that, that's the metals moving around. That's why my eye color is changing. The metals in my brain are moving around right now. And, as they're, I guess, getting loosened up and carried out of the body or whatever. So sometimes my eye color is different than others. And I would imagine that eventually my eyes will turn blue and stay blue. But talk about the iridology a little bit. And is there anything you can share with me about what I just said, or just what is it, and some interesting things about it? Because all I know is that there's only 2 true eye colors in iridology, blue or brown. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So I don't have a certification in iridology. I just have taken an amateur course and did a lot of personal research and studying. So with iridology, it's the practice of where you look into someone's iris, the colored part of their eye, and you can determine many things. You can determine the constitution of their body overall, how the body systems are, their different levels of health, their inherent weaknesses, and where inflammation is in the body. So there are 2 true eye colors, blue and brown, and everything else is indicative of a certain thing in the body. So like your eye doctor said, it is normal, or not normal, but it's more common for people to get darker as they get older, because as they accumulate more toxins and they accumulate more inflammation in the body, it will turn to rusty orange or brown and even black as they get worse with their health. So there are 4 main stages. And I have my notes in front of me because I have a little bit of brain fog right now. But So the 4 main stages, the first one is the acute level, and that's where things kind of just start to go wrong in the body. You get some inflammation. It might be a little painful. Usually there's like a lot of mucus going on, whether it's, with your lungs or your sinuses and things like that. And in the iris, you'll see kind of white going on, like a glaze over your iris. And these are actually the iris fibers that are going up a little bit. They'll rise up on the surface of the iris, and they're actually translucent, but it makes it look like it's white and that there's a glaze over the eye. And then there's the subacute stage, where you get into more lymphatic stagnation throughout the body. And this will turn kind of more of a yellow color. So for example, people with green eyes, they really have true blue irises, but they're more in the subacute stages of congestion in their body. So the yellow on top of the blue will make it look more green. And most people actually do have some parts of their iris in the subacute stage, because these are weaknesses that are inherited through the family line. Now with medical medium information, I believe that toxins are passed down, like toxic heavy metals, viruses, pathogens, all these things. It can be passed down. And if this person who is in a subacute stage doesn't take care of their health, it will continue on into the chronic stage. So the chronic stage is where metabolic wastes in the body are not properly being addressed. Like they just stay in the body and they accumulate over time, and nerve impulses get weaker and even deadened. And this is usually the stage that you'll see serious chronic illnesses in. And the color in the iris that you'll see is like brown, and you'll sometimes see kind of this rusty orange color going on. And this is definitely something I have in my own irises. Near the center in my stomach and bowels, I'll have really deep brown and some orange and red, because I know I have really chronic conditions going on there.
So wait, let me just stop you there. So different parts of the iris actually are connected with different body parts?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm listening to you about the colors, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because I noticed like flecks of certain things in my irises, but not all over.
Yeah, so the iris is actually connected with all different parts of your body through like nerves, and it's reflexive of your body parts. And there are different iridology charts that you can use, and it'll show you which body part connects with which part of your iris. So like in the center, like I just said, that's going to be your stomach and bowels area. And there are also different systems of the body that you can look at, like the lymphatic system, the respiratory system, the eliminative system, and all these different things. So going on to the last stage that we see in irises, it's the degenerative stage. And this is when chronic issues that have not been cared for just continue until decay and degeneration happens. And the lymphatic system here is really chronically stagnated, and this is not good. You'll actually see black holes where the fibers of the iris used to be, and it'll be like these deep trenches. And basically the iris fibers are lowered enough that they disappear from view. And this is really difficult to reverse. It is possible, but many people don't have the proper tools to reverse this. So they usually just stay with it. I was gonna jump in and ask you about that, because I know, like in Cleanse to Heal, you were pointing out when we were doing our book club together. I believe the part about degenerative eye stuff, he says actually some of it can't be reversed. It can only be basically arrested, right? Yeah, I believe so. And I think, was that about the color blindness too?
It might have been.
Yeah, you can't reverse color blindness because it's aluminum toxicity, but you can get rid of it in near the optic area, which will prevent degenerative eye diseases later.
Get rid of the aluminum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's what I'm remembering. That's what we were talking about. Yeah. Yeah. So it can help prevent the degenerative diseases. That's what it was. Because I know, I think her name's Kimberly, Reclaimers of Health. She posted, I think it was last year, that her vision went back to 2020 completely. She's been doing medical medium for quite a few years now, and it was like one of, the most recent healings she's experienced, because she was very chronically ill when she started too. And so that's really exciting, because when I started it and I started understanding, oh, my body can completely heal itself, like, I was like, ooh, maybe my eyesight will get better too. Like, why not? Why wouldn't that heal? So, and I've been wearing glasses since I was in 3rd grade. So, and medical medium talks about that too. Like, where, especially if you're wearing glasses when you're a younger age, like, that's an indication of really high levels of metals in the body. So, and all of the kids in our family were wearing glasses very young. 2 of my siblings started in 1st grade, and 2 of us started in 3rd grade. So, that's just an indication too, like you were saying, the metals get passed on from parent to child. And because of course we hadn't accumulated that much, and they were doing a lot less of those injections back then too. Because I'm a bit older than you, and they were doing probably a quarter or less of the amount of injections that they do in kids today. And so, we obviously inherited a lot of those metals, so that's kind of proof positive of what you've been saying. But this whole idea of iridology is so interesting, and I'm sure like you could go on for hours about all the different facets of it and everything. And that's amazing, because just in that beginner's course that you took, right, there's just so much to it. And the eyes are the mirror to the soul too. The eyes are so fascinating and so powerful, and we can, we really connect with people through the eyes. And, if you've done any sort of tantric work, like I've done some tantra stuff, and, there's a lot of connection through the eyes, and kundalini stuff with the breath and the eyes connected together. It can be really powerful way to connect with another human being and with source at the same time. And so, so much juiciness here. And, I know it's getting late. We're running out of time, but I did want to have you talk a little bit about the support group that you're putting together. So tell us a little bit about that.
So after we co-hosted our book club together, I really loved the idea of getting on Zoom and talking with other people who were like-minded with medical medium information, and to really have some support from people who understood what it was like to go through this and to live the lifestyle. So I'm putting together a support group over Zoom. It's going to be on Saturdays at 10 a.m. At 4 p.m. Pacific time. Sorry.
That's a big difference in time.
I have brain fog. I'm going to be posting it on my Facebook and my Instagram account. And so if you're interested, please message me your email and I will get in touch through there. But it's something that I'm putting together, hoping for people to be able to share their experiences and to get some support from each other in a very peaceful and fun and loving environment.
Wonderful. I love that. And this is free of charge?
There is going to be a small fee because I would like to cover my expenses, but it will be minimal.
Yeah, great. That's wonderful, because I know that's a big concern for a lot of people in the community, just because, if you can't work because you're really sick, sometimes money can be an additional stressor. Yeah. So that's wonderful. And so what is I'm going to tag you so that people know where to find you, but just if they want to find you right now before I get those up, what is your Facebook handle and your Instagram handle?
My Facebook is Tori Trev, and my Instagram is Vibrantly Victoria.
Wonderful. Okay, so people know where to find you. And one last thing I wanted to mention before we go, and I know that you and I have talked about this and you've been experiencing this too, is I brought up source energy, and, Conscious Collaboration Cafe is all about consciousness and, collaborating in that, and how we're doing what we're doing to help raise the consciousness of ourselves and subsequently the planet. And, you and I have talked about how we've noticed that we're more intuitive, that we're more open to source energy, the more that we eat really clean. And by the way, I did want to mention earlier, you were talking about eating whole food, plant-based, which I do as well, because our conditions really called for that protocol within the medical medium suggestions. And but he's not only whole food, plant-based. So if you're, watching and you're like, well, I'm not going plant-based, I don't want to do vegan, I don't want to do whole food, plant-based, I don't want to give up my meat, you don't have to, especially if you're not dealing with certain debilitating symptoms and conditions. You may need to for a while if you really need to do that to heal yourself, but it's not required. He does give suggestions for how to work around that and everything. But for us, we chose to go the whole food, plant-based route, and I've noticed for myself, and I think you have too, like it has really increased my intuition and my ability to connect with source energy, just because I'm not eating other living beings. And I say that without any judgment towards anyone else, but just, for me, that's been my experience, is that I'm not getting the emotions, the adrenaline, the cortisol, everything that's released in that being when they know they're about to die. And so for me, that's, really helped clear my body of those types of energies and chemicals and hormones, and really opened me up to that channel. And what did you have to say about that?
Yeah, I feel the same way. My intuition has really cleared up. I feel like my whole life I've always been pretty intuitive, but it's not till I started medical medium and I was finally getting rid of these toxins that were polluting my cells that I was really able to open up and be more of like a channel with my intuition. And I just feel it more opened up, because I know through my experience with doctors after I started medical medium, they would tell me to do certain things. They would tell me, oh, you need antibiotics, or you need to take this medication, or else it's not going to get better. But I just knew that was wrong, because I could trust myself and I did what I felt was best. And that always worked out in the end. And I trust myself and my intuition so much more now because of all those experiences. So it's really amazing, actually.
Yes, and that's such a great point. Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you were talking too, I'm like, right, it's also, getting the heavy metals out and all of the other toxins too. It just really, it opens up your body and your energy centers. And I see some comments here on Facebook. Ivan mentioned the heavy metal detox smoothie. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, maybe before you joined in. And I've been drinking mine throughout the broadcast. And Kristen says she would like to join the support group, so we'll have to connect her with you so that she can get that information. When are you starting that?
October 10th. So
October 10th. Okay, great. So coming up soon, but not this weekend. So. Yeah, so you have time to get your information to Tori and message her so that you can find out where to do that and get the link, because we don't want to post the link directly on social media to, avoid any Zoom bombing and things like that. So it is a safe space for everybody. So, well, Tori, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk and share all your knowledge and wisdom and your personal story and being so vulnerable with us. It's really, really wonderful, because when you do that, you give us all permission to do the same. And it's so healing for everybody. And I do want to invite you, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. That way you'll get notifications for the next time we do a Conscious Collaboration Cafe. We're here every Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific. And if you want more information on what I do, which is helping walk people through their healing journey, not just through the medical medium information, although that is a big part of it, but also the emotional and spiritual aspects of your journey, you can message me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm everywhere. It's all under Kristen Vallis. So I made it easy to find me, and looking forward to hearing from you. If you need help, just reach out. So thanks a lot for being with us today, and we will see you next week on Conscious Collaboration Cafe.